Since I was a young kid, I always loved the ocean. I found the ocean always so beautiful, just to look at the ocean, especially when the sun was rising or setting upon it, to see, to listen to the waves roll in, to go swimming, to go out on a boat, to go fishing. The ocean always for me had this beauty, this majesty. At the same time, the ocean, since I was a kid, could often be a scary place. I remember rowing a small boat into the ocean, and when you get very deep, it's so dark. You can't see things down there. And then my imagination starts to go away with myself, to imagine what is lurking down there in the deep. The ocean then for me, and I think for a lot of people, has this duality. It's somewhere very good, on the one hand, life-giving, beautiful, but at the same time, dangerous and chaotic. This theme of the ocean and the duality of the ocean is something so strong in the Old Testament. It comes across time and time again. On the one hand, the ocean is something chaotic, something dangerous. We read about in the Psalms about how sailors are terrified of the ocean. At times they even lose their life. We read in the book of Genesis, the opening pages of the Bible, how the waters are chaotic. Later in the Psalms, in the book of Job, we even read about sea monsters, Leviathan, Rahab, that dwell there within the ocean and threaten humanity. The ocean then is something chaotic, something dangerous. At the same time, we see in the Bible that the ocean is something good. In Genesis 1, it is God's creation. It teems with fish that people can eat, can use for food. The Bible also speaks about the majesty of the ocean. It's God's creation, something life-giving and good. Overall, however, in the Old Testament, we find a very important point about this theme of the ocean, and it's this. God, when we look at the ocean and the waters, God is able to bring goodness and salvation and life through the chaos or the dangers of the water. Two examples come across very clearly. Again, in Genesis 1, God looks at the chaos that is there in the waters and he organizes it, and from that chaotic waters creates life. Further, when we look at the book of Exodus, it's of course that through the waters of the Red Sea, that chaos, that danger, that God liberates Israel and eventually creates them to become his people. In the Old Testament then, water is such an important theme. The oceans, some were dangerous, chaotic, but because of God's power, can become something life-giving and even salvific. In the gospel today, Jesus is really stepping in, quite literally, to this symbolism of the oceans and the waters. And it's important for us to understand what the Old Testament says about the ocean in order to appreciate fully what the gospel is about today. We hear in the gospel today that Jesus has just multiplied the loaves, and now him and his disciples are at different times crossing the Sea of Galilee. And his disciples are in a boat and they are experiencing that chaos and that danger of the ocean, of the sea. They're there in the boat. They're terrified. The waves are raging about them. And then all of a sudden, Jesus, very peacefully, very calmly, walks across the waters. And he tells them not to be afraid. Jesus then, after having multiplied the loaves and showing his power there already to give life and nourishment to the people, is now presenting himself really in his divinity. Just as God created out of the chaos of the waters, controlling the oceans and the seas, especially when the people of Israel passed through the Red Sea, now Jesus possesses this same power. Jesus is there on this chaotic ocean, but controls it, symbolically showing that in that chaos of the world around us, Christ is bringing good things, is bringing salvation. And even more than this, Jesus invites Peter and all his followers to participate in this power that he has, this process that he works of bringing goodness, peace, and calm onto the oceans and seas. And we hear in this beautiful story how Peter has the courage to step onto the waters at Jesus' invitation. He walks towards Christ for a time, but then, of course, loses sight of Jesus, is afraid, and begins to sink into the waters until Christ saves him. Jesus, then, in the gospel today, is showing how he is like God, especially when it comes to the waters. That chaos, that fear that waters create, is something that Jesus controls. And in fact, Jesus can bring goodness and life from it. Just like for Peter, in our lives as well, Jesus invites us out into these troubled waters, invites us out of our boat, invites us to participate in the power, the life that he has. Each of us in our life face various troubled or chaotic waters. Could be for various things. Perhaps we are looking at a life change, retirement, getting a new job, deciding to get married or to have children, to have a vocation in religious life, to pursue some new volunteer activity. These are chaotic waters. They're uncertain. They're dangerous. Deciding, for example, to go and try to renew a relationship with a family member or friend that has broken apart. There's a lot of risk in this. It can be scary. But Jesus invites us into these chaotic waters, into these dangers, to be there with him. If we stay on our boat where things are comfortable, where we feel safe, we cannot face those new opportunities to be with Christ, in which goodness can be worked through these waters. Grace can come, salvation can come, new possibilities can arise. We see from this gospel that if we go out into the waters, if we stay focused on Jesus, if we stay close to Jesus, amazing things can happen. Those troubled waters in our life can become new possibilities of goodness, peace, and joy, not just for us, but for others. Entering those transitions in our life, taking new directions, working in a different way, giving of our talents in a new way, all become with Christ new possibilities that give us life, that bring goodness into our existence and those around us. Jesus then is always inviting us onto those waters of our life that can seem scary. Those new avenues, those new possibilities. Can be more comfortable to stay where we are, to remain in our boat, but if we do that, Christ can't work the wonders in our life that he plans. Let us pray today that we may have that courage to always follow Christ's invitation, to leave the boat and journey into those waters with Jesus when he invites us.